Welcome, everyone, to episode number 3 of The Tune In. My name is Ben Tyree. We have an amazing show tonight. But first things first, I need you to please hit the red subscribe button if you're on YouTube. It makes a big difference for me because we need all the support we can get. If you'd like to donate to help this show keep going, you can donate on Venmo at Ben Tyree or on Cash App $Ben Tyree. Tonight we have a very, very dear friend, bandmate, colleague. We call each other soul blings. If you don't know what a soul bling is, well, then you just got to find one and then you'll know. My dear friend, Shelley Nicole. Shelley Nicole, the mainspring behind Shelley Nicole's blaKbüshe, is simultaneously a product, a witness, and architect of Black on Black love, a calling that has informed all of her work as a singer, writer, composer, actor, poet, musician, and a healer. It is the taproot of her latest work, I Am American, a collection of songs written by her and produced by award-winning guitarist, composer, producer Vernon Reid of the band Living Colour. The project is part of the continuum of audacious, self-confident, and eclectic Black sisterhood that extends from Rosetta Tharpe to Nina Simone to Betty Davis to Labelle to Joan Armatrading to Meshell Ndegeocello. As band leader, she released 2 previous albums, She Who Bleeds, the Quick and Dirty EP. Shelley is also featured vocalist percussionist in Burnt Sugar, the Arkestra Chamber, that's where we met. Founded by writer musician Greg Tate and songwriter bassist Jared M. Nickerson. As a member of Burnt Sugar, she has traveled the globe performing in venues from the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles to Son de Verre in Paris. Please welcome my nearest and dearest, Shelley Nicole. Shelley, we're rolling.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
Tune In. The Tune In. I'm Ben Tyree, in
Yes,
case you
you
don't
are.
know. And you're Shelley Nicole.
I am.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So I feel like I haven't talked to you in like forever.
Well, I feel like that's kind of what the year has felt like for people.
Yeah, for sure.
So I understand. Yeah.
So tell me, what are you up to?
At this very moment,
In a
I'm
nutshell.
in a
Well,
nutshell. At this very moment, I am out of New York for a hot second, with my family.
nice.
Literally and figuratively, as they are on the wall behind
Yes.
me.
Yes.
And yeah, I just got out of the city for a little bit, for the holidays, and I've actually been, it's not like I get to stop because now we can work from anywhere. So I've been teaching my yoga classes here, and I had some friends that wanted me to write some things, music wise. So I've been doing that.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I mean, kind of trying to relax, seeing some family, but there's still work to be done. It's not the year is not quite done yet.
Uh, it couldn't be done soon enough.
Well, yeah.
I feel like I've like packed all my frustration with everything ever and just put it into 2020. Like it's all 2020's fault. You know?
Well, it's funny because I feel like this year, I keep calling it a strange, beautiful year because, um, obviously we know the strange part, but I don't think that a lot of us ever would have taken a break, for better or for worse, the way that we have
That's
right
for sure
now.
true.
We
Yeah.
just wouldn't have, like, we
Yeah.
just would have never sat down. And, and obviously for those who are not musicians or artists, I'm talking about musicians and artists.
Right, right, right. Because we're
um,
always on the move, right?
yeah, we're always on the move. We're always at a rehearsal. We're always, learning something. And not that that's not what we want to do, but we also could use a rest. And so, I, for one, really took it. I really took a rest. Um, but yeah, that's been the beautiful part, I think, of it. Being able to actually see my family in for an extended period of time. I haven't been able to do that in years. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so all of this year was not just doom and gloom, though there was lots of it. But I'm taking the good with the bad because there are some blessings to be had for this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. So like work wise,
Mm-hmm.
What have you been up to?
Well, for those of you who don't know, besides being a musician, I'm also a yoga teacher. So I've been teaching yoga throughout this whole time. And that's another one of those strange blessings because I always wanted to like have a virtual yoga practice and I just wasn't doing it. And then this forced me to do it.
Right.
So once I started with the yoga studio that I work with on a regular basis because they went online, obviously, because everybody's trying to stay afloat. Um, and then I just started doing my own personal classes because I have a yoga community that I started that I don't know, it's weird to say that I started, but like that was created some years ago. um and so I've been doing yoga, teaching yoga. What else have I been doing? That's so strange to say. In the early, I'm also a Reiki practitioner, so I did a couple of virtual Reiki attunements, which I didn't really get into, but it actually was a really powerful thing. I'm just, it was one of those things like I was like, let me decide if that's something that I really want to do. As far as music goes, um, a few people asked me to sing here and there, and it was very funny because, if for those of you who know me, I have a big band, and sometimes I'll break it down, but it's usually me and somebody else, at least one other somebody else.
Right.
So all of the things that I did during this pandemic have been me and a shaker. Like that's what it's been, and
That's the
people.
somebody else.
That's the somebody else. See how I'm saying? So it's been interesting to do that and also just kind of see how that's been received. Because
Mm.
in my brain, even as I'm singing, I hear the whole band. I hear everything going on. And so it's always interesting to me that people are like, "Oh yeah, you can come and you can sing a cappella. Cool." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So that's what's been happening. I mean, any sort of virtual performance that I've done, it's just been me and the shaker.
Mm.
And the only other virtual performance that people saw was during the BRC anniversary, but that was a video from a show that
Yeah.
I did. So, that
Now,
that
what night were you on? Because I was only able to catch the last night, and I
hmm
I missed the first hour, but I caught like the 8 to 11,
yeah, so
and it was just
I think I was in that
talking.
first hour of the last
Oh,
night.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that was
No.
that was awesome. That
Yeah, it
was
was good. It
really,
was good.
it was like educational.
hmm
Also, it was like, oh, all these people I love together
Yeah,
again,
I
and
know.
then the comedy that ensues
With those people, yes.
it was yeah, that was great. That was
Yeah, it was
great.
a nice event. But yeah, and then like I said, just recently, a friend of mine is working on an album project, and he asked me to collaborate on two songs with him. And then our friend Leon, well, I'm gonna say it because hopefully by the time this airs,
Uh-oh.
it will have already happened. But if it hasn't, then you can edit it.
You've been working with the professor?
I've
Is
been
it is
working with
that
the professor. He asked me to sing a song that he wrote for his beautiful wife.
nice? This is Leon Gruenbaum, our
Yes,
colleague and friend, and
yes,
the professor.
the
Well, I don't
professor.
know. Do you ever refer to him as that? Because
No,
I
I
know.
refer to him as the bomb.
Oh, that's right. A lot of people call him the professor. You used to call him what did you call him? I don't know.
Me? Oh, well,
You
he
called
was
him
one of my
like
baby daddies for a minute.
right, but like he had like a number. He was like number
Yeah, I think
three
he
or
was like
something.
number 4. I think he was number 4 because Jerome is number 1. I think Jeff Judy is number 2. Aki Burmese is number 3, and I think Leon
Nice.
was number 4.
That's a good crew.
That is a good crew,
That's a
right?
good crew. Yeah.
If you're gonna be a polygamist, you got.
You gotta put together a good,
a
yeah.
good a good team, a
I
good team.
probably I probably have more, second to my wife. I probably have Leon. It has the most nicknames of all of my people.
I don't know all his names, but I definitely know the bomb and I know the professor,
Oh, I
and
have
I know.
shit.
But you make up names for everybody.
I love making up names for
Yeah,
people. I love it.
exactly.
I love it. And that's the thing is like the more I love someone, the more I'm gonna either do their voice, make up
Right,
names, like make
right.
up alternate names.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, and that it's funny because that's kind of how I grew up because my whole family did that shit. Like everybody imitated each
Oh,
other. It
okay.
was like
Got it.
hilarious.
Got
That's
it.
how we entertained
Right. Well,
ourselves.
You can buy it honestly. Makes sense now. Now I understand where you get the skills from.
That's right.
Yes.
So I was actually one of the things I started doing lately just to kind of warm my heart a bit at
Hmm.
times is looking at the Facebook memories. Do you ever like just like click on that and like, yeah, I know. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, but there was one that really warmed my heart, and it was a
Yes.
post of yours
Hmm.
where you posted the band when we were on that West Coast tour maybe like
Yes.
3 years ago,
Yes.
and you wrote this whole thing about it, about being the only woman on tour at that
Yeah.
time and how like you felt really supported. And
Yeah.
like I remember being touched by that at the time, and then during this when I like looked back and found that, I was like,
Yeah.
like I had to repost it because it was like it just like lifted me up reading that again.
Yeah, I think that at that moment, the one of the reasons why I wrote that was because it was kind of at the I don't know if it was the height or in the midst of whatever of the Me Too movement. And so I felt in that moment it was just very important to shine some light on some men who were not, doing terrible things, because I felt like there was an energy in the air that like
Mm,
all men were just problematic. Like, it's like everybody was just sort of being lumped into a umbrella at that moment.
right.
And I just kind of felt like I needed to share that, especially because I know for a fact, many women who have been on the road with men and it has been a really crappy experience.
Yeah, sure.
So, I don't know, I just felt like I needed to, I don't know, it just really felt important to me in that moment to share that I was out here, with this group of men who were really amazing and beautiful and respectful,
Mm,
and not skeevy.
right, right.
Just to be perfectly honest,
Which
you know what I'm saying?
so many are, especially in music. And
Yes.
like I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to cultivate like growing relationships and getting better about just how I interact and how I work with people, especially women,
Mm-hmm.
especially just people that are not me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
I know some guys who have never been in a band with a woman, and
Wow.
it's bizarre to me, and yeah, I mean, it's a thing for sure still. You have bands that are like, yeah, no,
I mean,
never.
I guess what's weird, why I say wow, is because, of course, I've seen many bands that are all men,
Right.
but I would never suspect that they had never worked with any women. I mean, especially if you've ever worked with any singers, most singers are women usually when you get into these situations. So for you to say that, that is a little shocking. Like, maybe I understand, like, if you are building a unit, as a
Right.
man, you might not be so apt to like have a woman be on it, but to have never worked with any, I'm like, that's wow.
Yeah,
That's
that's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there
Mhm.
for sure. And
Mhm.
yeah, I really feel like the I mean, obviously right now nobody's doing anything, but
Mhm.
these
But some
times,
people are doing things, which I think is
that's true.
interesting too.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, not like, we're talking about kind of the before,
Yeah.
the way we were before,
Yeah, no. Definitely
where we're
not.
in a van and
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
going.
And people are making it work, but it's not like it was at all.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I have to admit, this is just coming into December. I was, I feel like I was carrying all of this very well up until this month.
Hmm.
And I just got to this point where like I'm so tired of this shit. Like I just want to like go back to I want to be in a van. I want to be on a plane. I want to hug my
Yeah.
bandmates and laugh and make
Yeah.
music and like kick ass and like work hard and like be
Yeah.
fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard to put a pretty face on that for so long. It's like, you know,
Yeah. I
a
mean,
happy face rather.
yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Hmm. It's interesting. Like, I think for me it's definitely been more of a wave than like sort of reaching a wall, so to speak. It's just sort of like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm good, and then sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is not good at all. It's
Yeah.
definitely been one of these kind of things,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I guess is kind of like what grief is like, you know. Um,
Yeah. Mm.
and I guess I keep thinking. Well, what's interesting? Okay, for instance, we like I said at the BRC event, I had sent a clip of the show that I did at Tribeca, which you were at, and
Oh yeah,
so
that was
I
this year, right?
that was this year. That
Yo,
was
that
in
was in
February.
February.
That was the
Why does
last.
that feel like 10 years ago?
Yeah, 10 years.
That was
10
a
years.
great, that was a fucking awesome
Thank you.
show, by the way.
Thank you so
It was,
much.
I remember it was so cold.
Yes,
It
it
was
was
like
so
5 degrees
cold.
outside.
Oh my God, it
Yeah.
was so cold. Yeah, it was so cold.
That
Which,
was an
yeah,
amazing.
that's a
That was
whole
the
other.
last show I saw
Right, and then we did. It was the last show you saw,
that I
and then
saw that I wasn't in,
did.
right?
Yep,
Right.
exactly. And then we
Right.
did the show at the Apollo.
That was the last show I did, right?
Yep, and that wasn't the last show I did, but that was the last big show that I did.
Yeah.
Um, but that so all that to say, the person who videoed that show, my videographer, he had sent me that show like 2 times to like look at. You know, he was like, "Okay, here it is," and like I kept letting the the we transfer file expire. Because I just, I wasn't really ready to look at it. So finally, just recently, I really watched the whole thing and I was like, oh my God. I was like, that show was really good.
It was really good.
And it really put me in this place of like, oh, like I need to work on that show, like really like tighten it up, go back to what I was thinking about when I was writing it, and then, expand on it. Cause that was the whole plan, was like to expand on it and really do a whole thing. But then like you get into this moment of like, oh yeah, well I can expand on it and do all these things, but when are we going to perform again? And then you start to get into that like, well, how is this going to come to life? And then I started thinking, well, maybe it's about reimagining it. Like maybe it's about, instead of it being strictly on the stage, maybe it's about making it a multimedia piece in terms of like filming some of it, or, something like that, just to try and keep it alive, keep it going. And because for some strange reason, I don't want to say some strange reason, but I will say, this album that I created, meaning the I Am American album, like it keeps living.
Yes.
Like it
Because it's
keeps
great.
living. I
It's
mean,
great.
thank you so much for it being great, but also just like, yeah. And so I just feel like the message, is still relevant and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just thinking about what to do with that project now, and figuring out a way to keep that thing going. But yeah, that was February. That was February. It's a whole other world ago.
I love your band blaKbüshe. I love the camaraderie and friendship and love that you definitely feel between the people. I mean, I can say this because I know everyone,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, I try to think like if I didn't, would I still pick up on this? But you
Yeah.
can feel it,
Yeah.
and they're all amazing. It's really tight. That was probably the tightest blaKbüshe show I've seen. And
Bless your heart.
your performance, like I've performed with you a lot and I've seen you perform a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's definitely a side of Shelley that's like, I'm performing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I felt like this last show, it was like you were doing really deep kind of energy work. It wasn't just like I'm performing, like you were like doing
Yeah.
sorcery or something. It was like, no, like seriously, it
Thank
was
you.
really intense I mean, I can't explain it, but yeah.
So again, for those of you who don't know, the show that I did, it was yeah, it was called I Am American, like colon hindsight is 2020, which is very interesting considering where we landed,
Yes.
right? I really did that because at the beginning of 2020, everybody was like 2020 vision, it's all this, 2020 vision, it's clear, everything's clear, and I was just kind of like, maybe,
Right. Right.
and and so I created that out of that, and I really wanted, I've also been over through my whole career here in New York. I've also done theater. Like that's just
Hmm.
it's been a dual thing, like since I landed here. So, I mean, so theater honestly was what I thought I would always do.
Hmm.
So music, funny enough, even though I've done that my whole life as well, I didn't really think that that was going to be the focal point of my life. I really thought it was going to be theater, you know. I'd have lost all the money on that. So, but there's something that keeps me doing theater all the time. So that was really what I was thinking about when I was doing this piece. I was like, well, girl, you can write. Like, you know, I've been part of, in the 90s, you know, I was part of the whole spoken word, you know, reemergence of the Black arts movement in the 90s in New York. You know, I did all that, and I write, you know, besides writing music, like I just write. So I said, all right, let me go back to that and let me look at what I wrote as far as music goes for that project, but then also look at how it's connecting to what's happening to the world right now. And of course, at that time, you know, in 2019, the 1619 project came out from New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2020, you know, was the 100-year anniversary of the suffrage, you know, of women getting the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
You know, interestingly enough, going back and listening to what I wrote, you know, it was early on when Kamala was running for president. And it was kind of like right around when she had dropped out of the race
Yeah.
when I started writing that piece. And it's interesting to see what I wrote then and know where she is now, you know, because in that piece, I was talking about her and I was saying like that it might be weird for me to be talking about her now, considering that she was out of the race. But I was also referencing the fact that her middle name is Devi, which means goddess, and look where she is now. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really, you know, I was like, whoa, you know, it's interesting to see. So, I yeah, just taking that and really wanting to finally, I guess, create something that really uh, utilized all of my skills. And I guess, and I don't want to say my first love, but I will. Yeah, my first love, which is theater, and and put all those things together. So that was my, you know, even though I know it came off very big, and you know, because that's, you know, it's kind of like go big and go or go home. That's how kind of always how I am.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but it was really, to me, it felt like a rough draft. Like it was like, okay, this is just like, you know, we're just gonna step into the arena and see how this goes. I got very, I don't want to say lucky, but I will say, you know, or blessed. The sister who helped me out with the visuals, you know, we kind of were kind of rushing to put things together, but she really, in the time frame that we had, we put together some really nice visuals. And um,
Who was
you
that?
know, hmm.
Who was that? What
Her
was
name
her
was
name?
SB. Her name was SB Proctor. She was a young
Okay.
woman who was another did lighting design on another theater project that I did with Nia Witherspoon, who you've seen some of the pieces that I've done with her,
Was
the
that
Messiah Project.
Messiah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Messiah. Yeah, I said the Messiah Project, the Messiah
Complex.
Complex,
Yeah. Yeah.
Messiah Complex, and now Dark Girl Chronicles, and the Priestess of Twerk. So yeah, yes, Nia's yeah,
She's incredible.
she's
She's
incredible, and
phenomenal.
I
Yeah.
am like forever thankful to work with her on anything she's doing.
Sure.
So yeah, so I kind of plucked her out of an event we did. I think like an excerpt of um the Dark Girl Chronicles, I think at the Judson Church, and I believe it was SB who did the visuals for that. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that was really beautiful. So I just kind of got the information. Um, and so yeah, I hope, you know, that as we move forward and we get to a space where we can perform live again, to be able to like bring that back and continue to build on it, and you know, see where my imagination can take me or where it can take us.
I think so. I mean, you have it all documented. So
Yes.
the crazy thing is right now I have probably a URL folder of all these organizations that are taking submissions for 2021. And
Ah,
I'm
you
like
should send that to me, please.
I will. I will. Well, right now a couple of them I let expire,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Like
Yeah.
they're not taking, but I'm so daunted by that. Like I'm like, oh, I gotta like ramp up and start pitching things again, you
Well,
know?
it's funny because yeah, I'm actually about to submit to two things. Um, but there's some folks, again, I think like my theater family, they know, like they're in that, you know, because they're always submitting for grants, submitting for this. Like that's sort of like their life.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like get into that vibe of like what that is, who those organizations are, what they're looking for, um, where I fit, where I don't, do I want to create something? Do I want to try and tweak my thing to fit, all
Mm,
those things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of just like part of me is wary and skeptical. Like, am I gonna like throw together this pitch and then it's gonna be like, nope, one more year, one more year of
Well,
nothing.
it might be, but
Vaccine
if
didn't
you
work.
but you said
You
you
know?
have a whole folder, so therefore I can't
Well,
believe
that doesn't mean
everybody's
it's
gonna say
that
no.
doesn't mean the folder is full. I said I have a there's a couple. I it was full until I deleted all the ones that expired. Now it might be like
Right.
two or three, but
Okay. Okay.
um
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think it's also that thing of like knowing, like, again, I think my theater folks are really the people. Like, some people really know, like, when all these things come up, you know. But I
Yeah.
will say, not to, you can edit this out if you want. If you go to the Creative Capital, I think Creative Capital website, besides them doing their own huge prize,
Hmm.
if you're on the mailing list, they're always emailing about when
Oh,
things are
okay.
happening. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just something to know.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you believe my first money I ever got paid in life was for acting? Since you talk about theater, would you believe that?
That was your forever in life, like ever.
The
Okay.
first money I ever earned,
Earned. What were you doing?
I was in a telephone company commercial.
Oh,
Yeah,
how old were you?
I was 8.
Oh, okay.
And my
That's
dad was like, "You're starting a savings account with that." And I did.
exactly.
And I had it and it accrued interest until college. And then
Uh-huh.
once I got to college, of course,
Yeah,
it's
that's done.
always needed money. So, yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, I was a little, I did junior Shakespeare in
Oh, okay.
DC. And so the schools I was going to from kindergarten to 8th grade, they had this kind of magnet arts school program thing
Mm-hmm.
where we would
Mm-hmm.
go like one half day a week to
Mm-hmm.
this art school.
Mm-hmm.
um and you do all kinds of stuff, and
Right.
they had an improv theater thing, and
Okay.
I did that quite a bit. And somewhere there's some dusty, very embarrassing videotapes of me doing like,
Yeah.
you know
I think we all have those
yeah,
somewhere. Yeah, there's like a very dusty videotape of me and my old group called the Respectables singing in the back of my church.
the respectable.
The
Now
Respectables.
is
We
that
did we did all Aretha Franklin covers.
wow. Now how old is this? How old were you?
Oh, that was high school.
Okay.
Hmm.
So what was like the first musical thing you were involved with?
Probably church.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like church choir when I was a kid. So yeah, I would have to say church, and then I started playing piano when I was 5. So that's probably started happening simultaneously
Hmm.
somewhere in there because I'm sure I was probably in the kids choir when I was 5.
So like what was the first thing you did where it was like, okay, I've got this, idea, I'm booking a gig, I'm putting a band together?
Oh, that didn't happen until I got to New York.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, no, I had no. I mean, I did a lot of things before that, but
Hmm.
the actual thought of putting a band together, I don't think that happened until. I always say blame Greg Tate. I don't think that happened until I interviewed Greg Tate. Greg Tate was actually my very first, talking about very first paying gigs. He was my very first paying gig in terms of in my journalism career,
Uh-huh.
because I had to write an article about the Black Rock Coalition for the Philadelphia Tribune.
Hmm.
And so that's how we met. And I interviewed him, and then he took me to Tramps to see Women in Love, uh, and I think Remy Leku.
But he was in Women in Love.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I went.
Right.
He was like, "Come to
He
this."
was
You
like,
know what I
come
mean?
come to my gig. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I believe, I don't know if he took me or I just went to CBGB's, and I think I saw Remy again. Um, And I can't remember if this was Greg. No, I think this was later. I was gonna say I saw Funk Face, but I think that was later on. Like I kind of was already in a little bit in the, in the know, I should say, and didn't need. But it was after like going to see that Women in Love, going to see like I said, I'm sure I saw Funk Face. I saw Remy Leku. I saw you know when Tamar and Honeychild and Simi and Maya were doing the Sister Girl Riot.
Mm.
Saw that. That was kind of when I was like, oh, maybe I can do this too. You know what I mean? Because, and then I started, I had a gig at, I had an internship at Vibe magazine, and
Mm-hmm.
the woman who was the temp receptionist had a band, and her name was Robin. And we just got to talking, and she was like, "Well, you want to be part of my band?" And I was like, "Well," I was like, "Why?" I was like, "Why you think I could be part of your band?" She's like, "Well, you told me you could sing, right?" And I'm like, "That's all it takes." Like, just tell somebody you can sing and you can be in a band, but that's kind of what happened. And so I started singing with her, and that was kind of how I started to meet other people as well. I think that's where I first met like Rocky Bryant. um
I saw him a couple months ago.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
played a gig with him and Jeff,
oh, that's right, I remember
an
that. Well, I mean,
outdoor
I didn't know
thing.
when he
Yeah,
was on it, but I remember
yeah,
you saying
yeah.
you did that.
That was good.
um And I'm trying to think of some of the other players that I met at that time. But that was, that was kind of like when I really figured out that I could do it, because I had three backup singing gigs. I was singing with Robin, um, I was singing with Tamar,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time she was Tamara,
Mm-hmm.
and I was singing with Remy
Mm-hmm.
Lecoux, because I fell in love. Meaning, like I saw Remy play, and I was just like, oh yeah, I gotta be a part of this or something. So
Mm-hmm.
honest to God, I started making flyers for Remy. Like that was my first entrance into that band. Like I was like, whatever you need, I got it. And I think
Mm.
I was working in an office, and I just would run off flyers. So I think it was seeing these other young women doing it, that was what really made me be like, oh, I can do this too. And so I just remember at that time, of course, Jerome's been playing with Tamar forever. And so I just remember just asking Jerome at some point, I don't even know when, I was just like, hey, if I ever put a band together, will you come play with me? And he's like, sure. And the
Of
rest is
course.
history. Yeah, the rest is history. And I kind of like my first band, I kind of pulled from everybody else's band, of course, as we do, right? So like Clayton Craddock was my first drummer, and he used to
Mm-hmm.
play with Remy. Jerome was my guitar player. Of course, played with Tamar. They found me this cat named Calvin Wilds on bass. I don't know. I think Jerome was playing with him in some other place. Sean Banks. I don't know where or who. You know what? I think I might have saw Sean playing with like the Velt, or one of those
Okay.
those those cats. You know what I mean? And bass, drums, guitar. I only had one guitar at the time, and my singers, the folks that sang with me at the time, were Imani Jones
Mm-hmm.
and Shawnee Gillespie.
Mm.
Imani's still singing, Shawnee not so much. But yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and Achusium. How can I forget Achusium? And Achusium came with me. And Achusium and I were singing together with Tamar. So that was kind of like that was that bridge. But yeah, it was really New York. Like it was just seeing people. Like it was sort of like, oh, you, like you can do this? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Because in college, I sang. Like I sang and I did some things, but it wasn't with the idea that I could have my own band. No.
Mm. Isn't it funny what like New York does to you
Hmm.
when you engage it? And it's funny because people will ask, people kind of outside my world will be like, "Oh, so and how do you know so and so, and how do you know
Right.
such and such?" And I'm like, "I don't know what the hell to say to you." Like, like how long do you have? Because it's all this like
Yeah.
intertwined like
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
of chance and community, and
Yeah.
it's like, how do you
And
not know these people?
yeah, how do you not know these people? And it's funny because you are a person, I don't remember meeting everyone, and I don't necessarily remember meeting you, but I remember seeing you. Like I remember my first encounter with you was Jeff bringing you to the Soul Folk experience before it was Soul Folk to Hacienda,
Hacienda, yeah, in East
and so
Philly.
that was my first experience of you. And it's
Now it's
funny.
now a Capital One or Citibank or something.
Oh yeah, something ridiculous. Oh God, break my heart. But yeah, it's interesting how um I always think about Greg, and I think I'm every time I tell this story, I think I'm telling it a little bit wrong, but I'm just gonna say it anyway because it makes the point. But tells the story of when he was in college, and I believe it was Sonia Sanchez that he met,
Uh-huh.
and she came to the school and was talking to the kids da 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 about being an artist in New York and all these things, and she's telling all these great stories about being in the community of artists, and then of course Greg was like, well, that's all great and all, but you know how you talking about all these people, but how are we going to meet these people? And then she was like, well, if you do what you're supposed to do, they'll all be your friends.
Exactly.
And he was like, and that's what happened.
Yeah, you
And I
show
was like, and that's what happens.
you
That's literally what happens.
you follow your interests, your curiosity, your bliss. You show up, you
Yeah.
connect, and you connect sincerely. Not
Yes.
like, oh hey, I need something, or can you hook me up, or
No.
like you know.
Yeah.
Feel like that's like the big one of the big lessons of living in New York for me. Is,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I like have an agenda, or I'm like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
got to get my CD to this person, or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like get this
Mm-hmm.
person to do that. That's not. It's about a relationship building.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
really, and like sincere, like really, not just like pretend.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I mean, some of the places that I've landed in New York um, seem impossible when you think back on it, or think about it in. I should say, when you think about it in today's way of being.
Yeah.
Like the first gig I got in radio was a job I found in the New York Times. You know, what do they call it? I was going to say help wanted section, but what is it called really? The
Classifieds or
classifieds.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm like help wanted. How old am I? I'm like 87. But yeah, it was in the classifieds. And people like, how'd you get a job in radio in the
Mm.
classifieds? I'm like,
That's
because
where you.
things like that happened.
Yeah.
Because back then, I mean, and even now, right? If people call themselves equal opportunity employers, you have to post your you have to post your thing everywhere. But then people always say, yeah, but they always hire from within. I'm like, well, they didn't on that day. And I found it, and I got the job, and I was working in syndicated radio, and I worked in syndicated radio for a year. But it was like, it's funny people talk about 2020 being long. That felt like one of the longest years of my life, because if you know anything about TV and radio, it doesn't stop. Like it
Yeah.
never goes off. You know what I'm saying? It
True.
just doesn't stop. So it was like all the time, go, go, go. But I've met like like I always tell people, I met everybody from Jay-Z to Curtis Mayfield in that year.
Mm.
So it was like um so amazing. And then, you know, and that again is how that happens, I guess, in New York. How I did radio comedy for a little while. And, I think, I used to sing all these, like, I worked for this company and they would do all these, like, song parodies and stuff like that for, like, morning shows. And so I ended up singing with Martha Wash, who'd be incredible, and with D Train Williams. And I was like, how does this happen? Like, these two people are like people I love. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And here I am, like, singing with them every week, doing these crazy parody songs. And it was really surreal and magical, and a great time. But again, it's like only here. And sort of like when you're doing what you're supposed to do,
Right.
it's like those things kind of show up.
Yeah. And the hard pill for me to swallow was because I kind of came up really with this naive attitude that everything is merit based. You know,
Uh,
just be
yeah,
really good.
yeah,
Just be the best, be really good. And that's
yeah,
like 20-30% of it. The
yeah,
rest of it is like showing up, being at the
yeah.
right place at the right time.
Mhm,
Being, you know, available and capable, and you
mhm,
know, oh, you
mhm,
need me to get on a plane tomorrow? Okay, everything's
mhm.
already ready because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you live prepared, right?
Yeah. And I think living in New York, at least if you're doing things, it just teaches you to say yes. Like I have a friend who, she said to me, she's like, I really admire you because it seems like you just said yes to life. Like you just said yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I think that's a muscle you have to build up sometimes, even in the careers that we've chosen. But I think oftentimes you just say yes. And then it's like, and then you figure it out. Like, yeah, I
I
can do that.
I feel like that was a muscle I really earnestly started building in like early 2016. And I think that, or no,
Okay.
no, early 2017. And I feel like the election really triggered me to do that.
Mm.
Something just clicked in me that was like, you have to do everything
Mm-hmm.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone needs you to do something, you have to do all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of hit that switch. And that's, one of the reasons why this is so tough, because I was like really getting into that sort of just being wide open and
Mm.
like
Mm-hmm.
in service.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that very, very nourishing in a way, an unexpected kind of way.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because just like thinking back on the show I was talking about, from February, and I was definitely, as you say, just starting to push into like a space of expansion in terms of my art. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And even thinking about, because I was about to do those few gigs with the family stand and we were going
Oh
to do
yeah.
those. And I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, but like, yeah, I just have to say yes to this and, see what doors open. And so I think that's what everybody was kind of feeling like coming into this year. At least when I talked to people, a lot of people had a lot of, different things that they were thinking about doing,
Mm-hmm.
this year. Um, and I guess we all did do something different, right?
Yeah, that's
People
right.
ask me about, my show, like doing Punani Politics and why. And I said, I just sat, like, when we had this time to be still, like, that was what kept coming up for me. And it was like, you need to just be putting yourself into the zeitgeist like that. So I am. And I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen there. And I have no idea. But it is teaching me, like, to not make the same mistakes that I made before, which was this idea of having to do everything myself, even though I am doing it all right now. But
Mm.
I'm very consciously like, you can't continue to do it this way. So like really looking at like, well, what do I need and who do I need to make this happen? So yeah, it's it has made yeah, a lot of us just have to reimagine, rethink, revamp.
So your 2018 release, correct? I'm
Yes.
I'm American. I'm an
Yes.
American.
Yes.
Then I'm on. A lot of
Yeah.
people are on. A lot of
Yeah.
people we know and love are on. But it was produced by our friend Vernon
Our
Reid.
friend Vernon
Can
Reid.
you
Yeah.
tell me about that and what that was like? That sort of process, engaging that with him.
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing I always talk about with that is the fact that that I was so shocked, I guess, at the at the beginning that he said yes, and I had come to I entered into the conversation with him like ready to sort of like with like a whole pitch, like I had a whole scroll, and I was like, like okay, and this is
You're
what
like,
we could do,
pros. Here are the
right.
pros.
And before I could even ask or get into any of that, he just said yes. Like I was like, I just called to see if you might be interested in producing my album. He was like, yes, and here's why. I was like, and here's why.
And then he gave you the
And
scroll.
he gave me the scroll, of course,
That's
because
right.
that's what he does. Um, I think the second thing that was interesting about that yes was that I don't think Vernon had ever seen my band.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was sort of something that I realized a little bit into the process. Like I was like, wait, I don't think he even knows what I do because he was coming to it from burnt sugar space. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like he had seen me do what I do in burnt sugar. And so I think that's where his yes came from, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was also pretty amazing because I was just like, oh, I didn't know that I was making that sort of impression, I
Oh
guess,
yes,
coming from burnt sugar.
you were
So
for sure. You
yeah,
do.
so thank you. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was interesting, to learn. Um, Working with Vernon was great. Like he came, before we ever went into the studio, came and, sat with the band and went through all the songs and did all those things that you should do before you go into the studio so you're not wasting your time, money, energy, all that stuff. And it's funny. He, you know, he's a super brain, right? So,
Yes.
so when you're in the studio with him, if you don't know him, you might think he's not paying attention
Mm-hmm.
because he'll be on his iPad doing something completely different,
Mm-hmm.
mind you. Like he's not on his iPad, like looking at your lyrics or doing it. Like he's just doing something else. You'll be in the booth singing, or somebody else will be out there playing, and then he'll be like, "Okay, do it," and then somebody will play, and then he'll, you do your take. He'll look up. He'll be like, "Okay, that was good, but do." And so, like, if you don't trust him, you might have a problem because you
Sure.
might think like, oh, he's not paying attention and he's not, but that's not the case. Um, he also is somebody that won't let you do a million takes, which I appreciate.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, usually your first take is usually the one, even though as an artist, you never want to believe that because it's like, oh, I can do it better. I can do it better. But he's like, okay, you got two more times to do it better. And then that's it.
Right.
you
Right.
know? Um, and not to say that he'll never indulge you, but like really it's like, you know, he'll know. And if we really don't got it, of course he'll, you'll go back until you get it. But he's usually pretty like, nope, that's it. Um, and I I I liked working with him because he will listen to what you have to say. Like he's not the type of producer that's like, oh no, like, yeah, great, you're the artist, but I'm the producer. You know what
Right.
I mean? And so we're just going to make this my beautiful vision. It was definitely collaborative, and with
Mm-hmm.
the understanding that like I especially with that project, I had been working with those musicians for so long. Like that was one of the things I was like, I really want to do this project with this band. Like
Mm-hmm.
who knows in the future what that might look like, but so many of the songs that are on this album I have been doing with these musicians, and I was like, I can't imagine doing this music with anybody else. Again, it might be maybe next project it might be something else, but that project I was like, no, 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 it had to be those people. And he really understood that. And so we just yeah, he understood that, so that just made it a lot easier. Like it wasn't about him like, oh no, you should bring in this guy to play bass or this person do this. It was like, nope, these are your people, let's do this. But when I did like bring in like Aki, to play, and Vernon didn't know who Aki was at the time, so of course he was
Oh,
like, and he was like, well, maybe you should think about getting Leon. I said, yeah, Leon's gonna come later. I was like, but
yeah.
for this.
I bet he was pleasantly surprised,
He was.
wasn't
I
he?
mean, listen, he was just like, who, what, how? And I was like, I told you.
Who, what, how?
Right. He was just like, good call. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, great. I got Leon. I'm like, Leon's going to come in. Leon's going to come in with the Burn Sugar crew. I got them. You know what I'm saying? But,
Yeah.
you know, I need Aki. So he was definitely, very open to stuff like that. And like, even when we did, box, and one of my friends brought in that young lady. I don't know if you were there that day, but brought on this young like 14-year-old young girl named Ella, and she just wanted to come in and just like observe.
That sounds really familiar
Yeah, and
because
so
I think I was only in one day for that one track.
oh, that's true.
But this
But I'm like,
something
but was that the
sounds
day? I'm like,
something sounds familiar about this.
about that. But
Yeah.
she came just to observe, and then Vernon was kind of like, well, you're here. Like what can you do?
Right.
And so they had her play the uh I keep wanting to call that thing a xylophone, but it's not. The little tiny. Come on, it's like a xylophone, but it's not called a xylophone.
Not a glockenspiel.
Yes, the
Yes?
glockenspiel.
Okay.
Yes, the
Okay.
glockenspiel. So she's playing the glockenspiel on box.
Nice. Wow.
I know, right?
Her
And her recording
recording debut,
debut.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Yeah, so I mean, honestly, working with Vernon was great. He gave me so much grace is what I'm gonna
Mm.
say, because honest to God, like the record sounds so beautiful, and that's him and Alan. Like I can't even take
Alan
Alan.
is amazing.
Sheesh,
Alan Camlet.
Louise.
Yeah.
Alan Camlet mixed the hell out of that record.
Yep.
But he gave me a lot of time, like just which I'm really thankful for.
Yeah.
And granted, I mean, maybe he gave it to me because we had to do it in between, some of his travels and things like that, because Living Color was on the road a lot at that time. But when he was there,
Yeah.
and I'm very thankful for that.
Mm.
Um, and maybe something will happen again. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it will. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, you guys are partners. We're all partners here.
I
So,
know. I mean, he's another one of those people, one of those New York people that, um, as we talk about these New York stories, like how do you know these people? And it's again when you say to folks like, well, I don't even know where to start. How does that even begin?
yeah.
But he's been somebody who was on the periphery of my life for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then
Me
it wasn't
too.
until I think he came to play with us on Bowie and Burt Sugar that I really started to like know him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. He's a blessing.
Yes, he
And I
is.
don't say blessing a lot. I don't use that type of language a lot.
I know. Yeah. I think, honest to God, I think him and his wife and
Hmm.
are blessings,
Did you ever work with her?
Only once with Burnt Sugar, we did something. I can't remember at what venue.
Was it
I
Lincoln
believe it was one.
Center?
No, it was at one of the schools she was teaching at, I think.
Okay.
But I only did one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did a lot of stuff with her. She had what was the PS that was in the East Village? It might
Oh,
still be there.
PS1.
Yeah, PS1. I
Hmm.
always confused that with the one in Queens, the huge one in Long Island City.
Well, I think PS1 has two locations, to be
Okay.
honest. I
So
think
that
there's a,
one's also PS1.
I think, but I know the one in the village is definitely PS1.
So the one in the
Um,
East Village, she had like a residency there doing something with Niles. Niles, what was her
yeah.
partner's name?
Is
Niles.
that the one who passed away?
Yeah, he passed away.
Yeah.
Niles. Oh, I can't remember his last name.
I can't
But
either, but I know. Yeah.
they had like a kind of duet dance performance where they were like a married couple, and it was
Right.
kind of based on that premise.
Uh-huh.
And she had some music, like Burnt Sugar musicians doing the soundtrack to that, and it was all
Right.
improvised. And I feel like it
Wow.
was like a week long. Like I feel like I was like there every day for like a week practically,
Okay.
and that was awesome. I really, really, really enjoyed that. And
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like there was a couple Lincoln Center things, like
Mm-hmm.
more high end things with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's really fun to work with, and she
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like Vernon. She just gives you space to just figure it out and
Yeah.
plug
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first time I experienced because she was doing the whole thing with like conduction but with dance. And so that was what we did. It was
Right.
sort of like this interesting mix of like, Greg conducting us, but her conducting the dancers.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. I miss stuff like that.
I know. I
Yeah,
know.
I really miss stuff. I really like those like dancer gigs.
Mm,
Where you're doing improv and there's dancers, and that stuff is you just like engage. I mean, for me, you engage the instrument in a completely different way. It's like you're
mm-hmm.
plugging into what's going on, and
Right.
yeah, I really value that kind of stuff because you
Yeah.
do stuff you would never do anywhere else
Right.
at any.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about Burnt Sugar. It's like I can't tell you how many songs I've written based on stuff somehow Greg Tate got me to play on stage and like
Right.
loop, and I'm
Right.
like, oh man, I'm gonna remember this, and then I like write a
Yes.
tune around it.
Yeah.
That would have
Yeah.
never happened,
Right. I agree with that.
you know.
Yeah. I always think about, I mean, it's interesting because it took me, and I might have said this to you, but it took me being in that band to understand it, because I had seen Burnt Sugar, times before, and I was like, I just don't understand why everybody's into this. Like, it was just like, I don't get
I
it.
had that experience as well.
Yeah. And I just was like, all right, but to each their own. And it was quite amazing to me. And I was like, well, they got a following and good for them. You know what I mean? So, when Greg asked me to be in the James Brown show that was happening at the Apollo, and I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's easy. It's James Brown. Like, it's not like that weird out, thing that I had heard before. And for the most part, it really wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, that James Brown show was like pretty straightforward with a little bit of outness, but because it was a piece for Brandon,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a one man show kind of thing, it wasn't too all over the place. But
Mm-hmm.
then it was Greg was like, oh yeah, we're gonna be in the studio. Come and hang out with us at the studio, where he had me playing like cowbell to behind Chris Edelton for like, I don't know, 30 minutes, right? And Edelton, like, he'll play anything, you know what I mean? But I'm cowbell, so I gotta hold it down. Like, I can't be all over the place. Like,
Was this
literally, I'm just holding it. And so I was like, I guess that was my initiation.
was that before or after your surgery?
That was before.
Because I remember there was some stuff where you were only playing percussion.
Yep. And bless Greg for that too, because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I guess I won't be performing or doing anything, and he was like, nah, just come play.
But what were those where that was happening?
What shows?
Yeah.
I don't remember the shows. I remember the year. The year was 2012, but I don't remember the shows. I would have to go back and, look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's interesting to say that. I mean, like, it's funny how things happen, and you just kind of go through them, so to speak.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I the things I remember most about that time really is, I mean, of course, Greg letting me play. I don't remember which shows. Um, and I just remember getting a vocal coach, because I just was like, I don't ever want to be in this situation again.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing before, I was not going to repeat in the future.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember, just sort of like getting myself back in shape, so to speak. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, that was a interesting time. I mean, but what I was gonna say was that when I finally kind of got into Burnt Sugar in a way that, like, I did a gig that was not a repertoire gig.
Mm-hmm.
It was really like, just come and, we're gonna point you in, and this is the what Burnt Sugar was sort of founded on.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was like, oh, I get it. Like, okay, I get it. Like, I didn't get it. Like, from the outside looking in, I was like, I don't get it. But from the
Mm.
inside, I was like, oh, I get it. And so it definitely is. It gave me some skills that I really, like you said, like, you would have never even, things you would have never thought about, places I
Absolutely.
would have never thought about going or being, and inside of, using my voice, like, I just wouldn't have thought about it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so definitely being a Burnt Sugar, made that big. And I have to say, I think one of my favorite Burnt Sugar gigs was the show we did at the Hammer Museum in
That
Los
was a good one.
Angeles.
That was a good one.
It was a great show. That, I don't know, that stands out to me so much. But I mean, there's so many great ones. That one, and probably Minneapolis.
Minneapolis was Minneapolis is probably in the top three best gigs of my life, my whole
Yeah,
career.
Minneapolis was.
I was talking with Vernon about that yesterday. And you
Hmm.
remember, like, there was like people in wheelchairs standing up,
Yes.
and it was like,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it was like I can walk.
Yeah.
It was a powerful show.
It was a
That was an
powerful
amazing
show.
show, and
Yeah.
everybody felt it. We were all just like there and in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that we were on the whole tour, right? You were on the whole tour
Yes,
of
we were
that,
on
yeah.
that whole
And
crazy
that was
tour.
a super schlag of a tour, because we were. I mean, it was like We were staying at like Motel
It was a
Sixes.
slog. Listen,
Yeah, it
I
was
always think
rough.
about that tour, and that, like, again, the highlights were Minneapolis
Hmm.
and Ohio when we made it to the farm.
Yeah, that was pretty good because that was very relaxing. That
Because
was at that was at
that
the
was the
end. Yeah.
end, and I was like, because the rest of it, whoo, man. I mean, not that like it wasn't fun, but it was like, wow. And, but that last gig in Detroit before we got to the farm, that was crazy because that's the one where some people slept in the venue. Some
Oh, was that
people,
at Trinosophes or
yeah,
whatever?
Chinisos, yeah. Some
Yeah.
people slept at the venue. Me and Paula slept at what I call the cat house.
That was a pretty bizarre night, right?
Yeah, I don't know where you were.
I
I
was
don't
at
know.
me and Mikkel stayed at Petra's because
Right, you guys got the right. You guys had
she
the
was
high end. You had the
she was
high end
living it.
accommodations. Some other
Uh
people. Well, what I mean by that is you were with people you knew
yes. Entrusted.
and
Yes.
trusted. That's what I mean. And I can't remember where like Greg and Flip went, but I remember when they dropped me and Paula off at that hotel, I was like, "Oh no, this is not a good look." But we came out alive. We came out alive. I mean, that was the yeah, yeah. Whew.
Was that now that was the same tour, yeah?
Yeah, that was the same tour. That was this because I always think about the first because that tour was the Detroit. Okay, it was Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. It was Columbus, or was Columbus the first? No, no, no. That wasn't the Columbus gig. That was when
Cleveland?
Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh.
was the first. I think it was Pittsburgh.
Where did we play in Pittsburgh?
We played there twice. The Thunderbirds. Isn't that what it was called?
Thunderbirds.
Something like
In
that.
Pittsburgh?
Yes, it's called like Thunderbirds or like
I don't remember. This is
yeah.
terrible. I can't
But we
remember.
played that venue twice. I remember
I
going
was
through there
there?
2 times. Yes.
Okay. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been to Pittsburgh a lot, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was called like Thunderbirds. Um, Cincinnati. What's that where we always see
Oh,
Napoleon,
not the barn, but the
but the
venue.
venue.
The venue. Yeah, we played like 2 or 3 nights there, right? And it was
Well, we played 2 nights in Dayton because that was like one time we went to Dayton. I'm trying to think. These gigs are all overlapping because
I
one time
know,
we went
right?
to Dayton, we played. Oh God, I can't remember the venue, but we played there two
It was
times.
like a little collegey type of neighborhood,
Yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
then we did WYSO. You were definitely there for that for the radio station because I have video of
In
that.
Cincinnati?
No, that was in Yellow Springs.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Um,
And we played.
yeah, we played.
I remember that.
Um,
But that was a different tour. Or did we go do that twice? Because I feel
right.
like we've gone to the
Yes, because there
Midwest
was right. I feel like
few
we did
times.
WYSO twice.
Yeah.
Because right, the one I'm thinking about, right, the one I'm thinking about was no, am I thinking about that? Because I can see Micah, and I feel like Micah was with us when we did that little tour when we went to Kentucky. Were you on that tour?
We went
Yes,
to Nashville.
yes, we went to Nashville and played that
Yeah.
crazy place.
Yeah. And then my and
We've
my
been to
my
places.
my
But I
my
feel like there's two tours that I'm mixing up because one, I know that the drummer was Matsu.
that was the long one.
Yeah, so that was the one when we went to Minneapolis.
That
He
was the
just
long
didn't
one,
drum.
but because the other half of the band flew in and out of
Yes,
Minneapolis.
yes.
And then
Matsu,
we were
yes.
on the
So
road.
Matsu was on that tour, I think, but he
Yeah.
just didn't play the Minneapolis
That's
gig, even
right.
though he
That's
was
right.
there.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
because that was. So I think that's also the tour where we went to Chicago, and he got the bites on him. Remember, he got those bites.
Yeah. And we thought it was bed bugs, and it turned
Yeah,
out fine, but everybody was freaking out, you
yeah,
know.
of course.
It was probably
And
nothing.
yeah. And see, I'm mixing that tour up with the tour that I think came later that like Julie was on and
The one where she brought all the juice.
I think so, yes. And
Yeah.
JS was on because that was when we
Yes.
played and we played in Cleveland and no and everybody had there was like
Yes.
everybody had single beds, but it was like two people in a
And
room and they
this
had to
was
like
This was we
redo it
did
all.
that. We did the big venue in Cleveland. It was after Bowie died, right?
Yep,
We
we did
did
the
a
Bowie
Bowie show.
show.
So yeah,
Yep.
there's been like I would say at least three like Midwest
Yes.
adventures
Yeah,
in the
yeah. And I was
past
on all three.
5 years. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, all that to say, we've been there. Though I really enjoyed I really enjoyed when we did that West Coast run, the
yeah. We
last one.
we were going to be on another one too. That we would have been on it around now.
Yeah.
We would have been there, right? Yeah,
Yeah. And we were going to be in Italy too, believe it or not.
I
We
know
were
we were
supposed
going
to
to
be
be in
there.
Italy. I was gonna.
Yeah.
I had two other trips to Europe
Ugh.
fall through. You know.
Actually,
Yeah.
so did I because Vinks, where when I went last year to
Oh
France,
yeah, you were gonna go
yeah,
again.
they moved to Cannes.
Yeah, you just had a milestone be Earth Day, and
Yeah.
I remember you were thinking about doing a Europe trip to
Yep.
coincide with that, right?
Yep. I
That's
was.
right. I
I
remember
was.
that.
Yep. It was either
Yeah,
going to
we're
be that or it was going to be Hawaii.
right. I remember. And now you went to when was it that you went to Hawaii
That
after
that's
one of
the year. That was after the West Coast tour.
that's right. You're like, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we stopped in at UC Irvine,
Yeah.
and we were doing a sound check, and I was buying tickets for Hawaii at that sound check. People were
Oh
like, "We
yeah.
need you to come." I was like, "Yeah, give me 5 minutes."
That's when we were was that when we were staying in that house in that
In
that
Irvine?
that big Airbnb house? No, it wasn't in Irvine, but
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes,
It was in
yes.
Westminster near
Yeah, or something like
Anaheim.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think I only stayed there one night with you guys because I was staying in Los Angeles. I was staying in LA with a couple of my friends, and you guys were staying down there because
Hmm.
I rented a car, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll see you guys at the gigs," and that's what I
Hmm.
did. And then when we were doing the Irvine show and the UC
San
what
Diego, right?
San Diego,
Was yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
I stayed with you guys, and then we all flew up north and did that other side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was yeah.
I love it. I love that shit.
No.
You know, it's hard traveling, touring is really hard, but I don't know about you. I get a charge from that big time. Like I'm like
Yeah.
4 hours of sleep a night. Fuck it. Let's go. Like I'm
I
ready
think
to
the
do it.
hardest part about that was, and I used to always talk to Jared about this, and I would just be like, Jared, there's got to be a way for you to like get these venues to understand that we cannot fly in and play, or
Hmm.
we cannot drive in and play.
Hmm.
Like there's got to be some way to like budget that shit in because
Hmm.
that was the only part that would drive me crazy.
Yeah,
Like
it's
cuz once
tough.
you're going. But like when you to start, it was just kind of like it was always this long haul to get to
Yeah.
like the beginning, and then it was like, can we just get a breath before we actually hit? Because then after that, like you said, if it's like, all right, we got 4 hours here, we got 4 hours there, but it was always that like the landing point that had me like, oh my gosh, I
But I
cannot believe.
I have to say, and I know it's different for vocalists, but it really put it into perspective. Sometime in the last year, I was watching a clip of Duke Ellington on Dick Cavett,
Mhm.
and he talks about his schedule and his lifestyle,
Mhm.
and it was
Mhm.
exactly what we go through. He was like, yeah, you might be playing in Sioux City, Iowa, and like you play like 3 sets, and then you got to get in the bus, and you might sleep 2 hours, and you got show up to the town. You might not even get to the hotel, and you just got to go right
Right.
to the stage. Some nights I don't sleep at all, and I was like,
Mhm.
dude, that's what it is for
Yeah.
everybody, unless
But I
you're like Aerosmith and you're like fly into every gig
yeah.
and have
Yeah.
like 2 buffer days in between.
But if you're Aerosmith, yeah, sometimes you get 2 buffer days, but if you're flying in everywhere, you're going to have different things waiting for you. Even if you have to go straight somewhere, it's a
True.
whole different kind of landing.
Exactly. Like,
but
yeah.
but all that to say that, I do hope though that as we are realizing the tax that we have put on our bodies and our minds and our spirits,
Yes.
even as we love this, that this will start to shift and people will start to realize that we cannot continue that way.
Yes.
Like, and that it's not that nobody wants to do what we do, because we do, but
Yes.
there's got to be a better way to do it.
Well, that's kind of one of the motivations of me doing this. And I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you read my little press release,
Yeah.
but the tagline is something like humanizing the struggles and triumphs of artists, musicians, and other
Yeah.
creative. And it's
Because
like,
I
I
think
think
that people have this weird idea that we're not really working because they're coming to see us and they're having fun and it looks like
exactly,
we're having fun, which we are,
or it's not
but
hard,
or that it's not
and
hard and
it's
that people
very
aren't,
hard.
yeah, and
This
that
is,
people aren't really working, rehearsing and really getting themselves together to make it look effortless.
and
You know what I'm
sometimes
saying?
people are playing through illnesses and
All the time.
the loss of like
Hello.
the thing that really blew me away is Chadwick Boseman and his working through that for 4 years.
Yes. Yes.
Was like, okay, it was sad that he passed away, and then hearing about that, it was like
Hmm.
inspiring and also like devastating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, how and
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah. And I think that I mean, yeah, we work through illnesses. Listen, the Shaft show we did, the last show we did, I was sick.
You probably had COVID.
I think I did.
Yeah, because that was
And
February. Nobody knew what it
yeah,
was.
nobody knew what was going on. But when I think back on it, I just think about how terrible I felt
Mm,
for a whole week and a half.
yeah,
Terrible.
yeah,
And literally just being like, you just sort of start negotiating. Like you're just kind of like, okay, I have how long to get to this gig? How many rehearsals do we have before the gig? I've got to miss one. Which one
hmm,
do I miss?
that's
Because I
right.
need to be in shape enough to make it for the actual gig. So then
Yeah,
you just start looking at the calendar like, okay, what can I miss? What can I cancel? And
yeah.
again, it's like I teach
You're
yoga. So it's
planning
like,
like your whole month just
yeah.
based on a couple. Yeah, yeah,
And it's like, all right, I can't say this to this. And then, you know, and everything, as we know, being gig workers, if you don't show up, you don't get paid.
exactly.
So it's like all these things that you're negotiating in spite of your health. Like real talk, I should have been in bed. Like even like to do that Shaft show, even if I just said, okay, I'm still gonna do the Shaft show, I should have just been in bed all week. Like I just should have been in bed and I just should have been like, all right, I'm gonna get myself up and go to the show. But like it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
um Especially for that show because we had that like big tech,
yeah,
and like really trying to make sure that that was a thing. But I think back on it like you said it because I do think that I had COVID. But the very last show that I did actually was at this bookstore, which is a gig that I love. There's a it's these elders who do storytelling,
hmm,
and it's called Folks Telling Tales. um Again, a gig I love. This elder sister, she invites me every year, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go. And so I went, I did the gig, and I was like very apologetic in terms of like I didn't feel like my voice was all the way back, but I did the best. And I know me, like I sounded okay, but I know I could sound better. Um, but when I look back on it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, just thinking about the fact that I know I wasn't well, and I was like, I was there with the elders, now knowing what we know about COVID, and I like it just kind of freaked me out. And granted, I don't know that, like I, nothing happened to anybody, thank God, but it
hmm,
was just kind of a thing of like, wow, I was, you just keep going and you just keep going,
yeah,
and we can't really do that anymore. Like it's
yeah,
just not worth it. Like how many fundraisers have we been a part of for artists who
yeah.
need help with their medical bills or their whatever. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you give joy to people for your whole life, and then when you get to the end of your life you can't take care of yourself?
This is what one of the things I try to tell people. Not only that, but it's just like in order for you to get what you get, this is literally our whole life.
Yeah.
like all day, every day,
Yeah.
we're putting in for this thing, whether it's like a recording or a 2 hour show
Yeah.
one day. And yeah, the health thing is like I have my second ever guitar teacher who was like my teacher from 12 to like 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's like needs nursing care,
Yeah.
and he's got a GoFundMe, and I'm like, sending everybody his GoFundMe and trying to get people to donate. And I've had some people say like, oh, but aren't there resources and blah 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 insurance? I'm like, it doesn't work that way for everybody, you
Mm-mm.
know.
No.
So I think we need to get this idea that I mean, I think a lot of people need to get this idea out of their head that like what works for me or what works for this person, it's very different all across the board, and
Well, I think that there's like a false sense of so many things when it comes to artists, because I think that while people might be very clear that everybody's not making a lot of money, I think, like you said, there's this idea that there's just resources, or there's this idea that, like, oh, well, there's a musicians union, and so isn't everybody a part of that? And isn't everybody? I'm like, no,
most
it's
people are
like,
not actually.
no.
Yeah.
And, there's certain criteria to be a part of that. And, all those things. And, it's, again, I think it's, to me, it's just a basic, like, if people are out here working, like we're out here working, like regardless, why shouldn't, again, like when COVID happened, yeah, suddenly gig workers were able to get unemployment, but why couldn't we get unemployment any other time? We're still
Yeah.
paying taxes.
I'm hoping we can, I'm
Like we're
hoping
paying
this will be a
taxes.
permanent. Yeah. We work our asses off. We
Yeah,
pay all kinds of taxes. We probably
yeah.
pay more taxes than
Then
most
then
other
most
people.
then
Like
most.
every time I pay taxes, I'm like, how is this okay that I'm paying this much money?
Yeah,
Like this is
exactly. Right.
crazy.
Just
But
because
it's
you're not.
because you're paying self-employment tax.
No,
You're
I
paying
understand that, but
all
why am
this
I paying a
stuff.
tax to be self-employed? Like just because
Yeah,
I
it's
don't work for
crazy.
somebody else,
It's
so
crazy.
that's a tax?
It's
Like that doesn't make
crazy.
any sense. It doesn't
Um,
make any
so
sense.
that's why I told Greg Tate over the summer one time. I was like, I have no guilt taking money from the government.
Yeah,
Unemployment, yeah, give me that shit.
yeah. Get
Because like I'm not going to be like we can't do what we do for
right,
God knows how much longer,
right, right,
and
right.
that's our money anyway. Like
Yeah. Hello.
we paid into that,
Yeah. Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
So
So.
let's plug all things Shelley Nicole. I'm going to
Okay.
put all the links down here.
Okay.
So
So, all right. Well, all right. So, I'll do all the socials, So, if you want to find me, I am on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, all at blaKbüshe. That's BLAKBUSHE.
these are all going to show up down here. You said
Follow the
Twitter,
basketball. Yes. Twitter,
Facebook,
Instagram, and Facebook.
Instagram. We're going to put those.
blaKbüshe. I'm also on Instagram because I have too many Instagram pages. I'm on Instagram. If you'd like to find out about my yoga practice, I'm at Sovereign Hands Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find me there. Also on Twitter and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a podcast, which I talked about, or a show, I guess, eventually it's going to be a podcast. I keep calling it a podcast, but it's a live show, more like a TV show, but called Punani Politics, which is based on my song that I wrote, Punani Politics. If you're not sure about that song, you can also find my album, I Am American, which has all that work. So yeah, you can go to blaKbüshe.com.
Where do you like people to go to hear your music?
To buy music, you can go anywhere, but Bandcamp's always good because they give us the most money.
We plug
But I'm
Bandcamp a
on,
lot on this
yeah,
show.
yeah,
Yeah.
Bandcamp's good. I'm there. But if we're on all the platforms, but just know, like, if you're listening to me on Spotify, I'm not really seeing a lot. Like that money is like it's like dust in the wind, as the song says.
Yeah, it's crumbs, crumbs.
It's like dust in the wind. Um, but Yeah, but Punani Politics, we did season 1. If you want to see past episodes of that, you can go to YouTube. You can go to my YouTube channel. So it's YouTube/blaKbüshe. You can see all the episodes of Punani Politics. So we had 13 amazing episodes. Season 2 is coming back on January 13th. I'm really excited about that. I'm not even going to say who any of my guests are yet, but we're coming back
Exciting.
on January 13th. And so you know, because I'm all woo woo and things like that, the show happens on all the auspicious moons. And if you're not sure what that means, it means it happens on the full moon, it happens on the new moon, and it happens on the first and the last quarter moon. So that means the half moon. I know it says first and last quarter, but really, if you look in the sky, it looks like a half moon. So, that is how the show happens. I am still, you know, I started the show without all my, I guess, assets, as they would say, all my promotional things, logos, and all that kind of stuff. But all that stuff is coming, websites coming, and all that stuff. But you can find me on IG at Punani Poly TV. I know I got to give you all the links. Punani
No,
Poly
I'm going to put them
TV.
up. They'll
Okay.
all be up here.
And also, oh yeah, on IG and Twitter at Punani Poly TV.
Boom, Twitter,
Um,
IG.
yeah, and I'll probably end up starting a Facebook page, but I don't have that yet,
Okay.
And yeah, that's kind of what's happening right now. Music wise, um, not a whole lot. Like I said, I'm working on a project with my friend Soul, who also goes by Sway Jenkins, who also goes by B-Side Frankenstein.
I like that one. I
Yeah.
like that one.
And so we're working on some things together. I'm excited about his project. And I'm starting to feel creative again. My friends, because they made me do some stuff with them. I'm like learning my equipment and my little garage band things I have. So
Nice.
who knows? And I've invested in all these beautiful microphones and things for myself. So now I need to use them.
Do you have a message for the people going into 2021? Because we're now here at December 16th, going
We
into the new
are
year.
we are here at the end of the year. Yeah. I you know what? I think the message really is about 2020, because I think that we have again put all of our stuff on this year, like everything that's ever gone wrong in our life, we're blaming it on 2020. But I really want to say, like, to as this year closes, to think about what are your blessings, like what has been good in this year, and really have gratitude for that. Like, even for the fact that you are alive. If you're alive and
Mm,
watching this, you know what I'm saying, or listening to this, like, that's a blessing. And I know it might be hard, especially if you've lost people, to even acknowledge that. But I think that there's something to be said for really looking at what has been, I guess, good, for lack of a better term, in this year,
mm-hmm.
because there have been some real blessings that came out of this year in the midst of a
Absolutely.
lot of sorrow. Um, and I think, going into 2020, I know that we're not, right at, it's not like the calendar is going to turn and suddenly we're going to be able to not be in a pandemic, or we're not going to, but I think that we have to look ahead and really think about what we want this world to be, because we're not going back. We're not
That's
going
right.
backwards. We're only going forwards. So what do you want, this country, this planet, to be going forward? And understanding that we still have a lot of work to do. Even when the inauguration happens on January 20th, it doesn't mean that suddenly, like, everything is fixed and ready to go. It's like there's still a lot to do. But we're better, and I think we're just continuing in a forward motion of being better. And I think that if you or us, um, can, you know, shift our minds to uh, a space of knowing that we're going to be in a better space, that we're moving towards a better way of being, toward being better human beings. I think that's what we should look at and think about for 2021. And, make big plans. Why not? Like, we
Why
don't
not?
know. We don't know. One day we might wake up and somebody might be like, hey, Ben, hey, Shelley, we're playing at the Apollo again. Be ready. I guess that's the thing, right? I mean, that's what musicians we do all the time,
That's a
right?
good
Like,
lesson. Be ready.
get
Yeah.
ready, stay ready, be ready. Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for doing this. It's
Yes.
good to
And
see
well,
you.
Ben Tyree is my soul bling.
Yes. Yes, I tell people that. They're like,
What? Yeah.
they don't know. They don't know.
They
That's
don't
okay.
know. They
When
haven't
they
been they haven't been
when
in the van.
when you get a soul bling, you know
You
what it
know.
is. All right. Let me know when you're back in Brooklyn, okay?
Yes, I'll be back soon.
All right. I'm going to
Love
sign off.
you.
Love you. Thank you.
Okay. I'll
Take
see you
care.
later. Bye.
That was awesome. I really want to thank Shelley Nicole for joining me on the tune in. Remember, please hit the red subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Please stay in touch. Visit www.bentyree.net. Check me out, check my music out, check out upcoming happenings. If you'd like to contribute to help keep this show going, you can donate at Venmo, Ben Tyree, or Cash App, $Ben Tyree. Thanks again. Take care. Peace.